Today, I'm going to share 3 big lessons I learned from 2025. Hey, I'm Scott Peckford. This is the I Love Mortgage Brokering podcast. And if you've been listening to me for a while, we have not had any shows, not any new ones anyway, for the last couple of months. I had taken a break. I've been doing the podcast now for 11 years and decided I just needed to step back, catch my breath. And I'm excited to continue this podcast as in this next year. And so this episode, I want to share with you 3 big lessons I learned personally, professionally, in the last year. And then I'm also going to talk about what's coming next in 2026. And we've got some cool stuff planned out. So thanks for listening. Hey, as I always say, we've got a great sponsor for this show. Ownwell is an amazing tool for mortgage brokers. If you've got clients with databases, if you want to engage them and have them get emails that they want to open from you, check out ownwell.ca. It's like HomeBot, but for Canadian homeowners. It's a fantastic tool. Open rates of 60 to 80%. Help you create deals. Tell them I sent you. All right, let's jump into today's episode. So the first lesson I learned is one that I needed to relearn because it's something that I knew, but it's funny how we can forget our old lessons. And so if you recall, I remember one time there was an ad that came out a long time ago, and it was about how banks would focus on new customers and give these, join our bank and we'll give you cash, we'll give you an iPad, and they had this ad that was on YouTube where it was ice cream, but it was for new customers only. It wasn't for existing customers. And it showed the ludicrousness of focusing on the new customer instead of the existing customer. The reason I share this is because I've actually made that mistake. And so 4 years ago, I started a brokerage, and I had said many times before, I had no intention of ever starting a brokerage. And I got sucked into and focused on the growth numbers, which have been phenomenal, the agent count, and forgetting that we actually need to take care of our existing agents. And by full confession, I have not done a good job of that in the last year. And so in the last month and a bit, part of the retooling, even in this last month, was thinking about, okay, how do we actually serve our agents at scale and create something that actually works? And so that's something that we've been putting a lot of energy and attention into. And so it's a mistake I made. Full confession, should not have made that mistake, realize it's an error. And now my focus is completely on helping our agents level up. Obviously, still continue to produce podcasts and some other content, but that is a small part of my week. Most of my week goes towards working with our existing agents and helping them improve. And so that's my focus for 2026 personally. But that was a mistake or a lesson I had to relearn. And I'm like, dang it. You know what? I just got caught up in the hype. And it is something that I have worked on fixing and we're continuing to fix. And some of the things that we're doing for that, one is we've got agent concierge that now calls our agent, myself included, call our agents on an ongoing basis and talking to them all the time. Where are you at? What problems do you need to solve? We recently I did a workshop that was supposed to be just for Bricks agents, but I decided to open it up, and I'm glad I did. We ended up having 500 plus agents show up. But that workshop showed about the idea of, I call it the anti-shiny object workshop, because myself included, and if you're like me, there's a lot of shiny objects in the mortgage business, and it's trying to decide which single shiny object should you be focusing on. And that was the whole goal of that workshop. But we did the workshop for everybody, but within the brokerage, I'm now doing another session to help people refine that and then work with our agents over this next year to help them make this their best year yet. That's the focus. We want them to have their best year yet. And part of that is just getting rid of a lot of other stuff that doesn't help you in your business. And so there's an example of one of the ways we're doing that. Also retooling how we do our training and stuff. All that to say, it was a mistake that I made. And now I'm realizing, okay, I got to fix that. The second thing I learned, especially in the last couple of months, is that reposting content works like a hot damn. I had no idea how effective it would be to continue. I saw on social, and I've been taking some training on social media because I'm trying to learn how to do it better. And they say a third of your content should be reposting your best stuff. And we've been doing that. And so over this last 2 months, when I was not creating podcasts, we were reposting old content. And my reach on my social was up there. Our downloads on our podcast were half of what they were. So we produced no shows for 2 months, and we were still getting 50% of the downloads from past episodes. And it made me realize it's like, hey, if you've got content that's good, you can repost it. And that's, we selected what we didn't repost everything. And the thing is, it's easy to realize that I can say that, but if I'm honest, I step back and I think about when I see content of something that I liked in the past from 3 months ago, whether it's on social or a podcast, and I see it again, I'm not ever annoyed. I'm like, oh yeah, right. Because often, as they say, smart people just need to be reminded more than taught. And so it's like, oh, right, that's a great lesson, or I really like that piece of content, or I really like that podcast episode. I listen to it again. If you do create content, and hopefully you create some form of content as a listener for your audience, whoever that is, but repost the good stuff. Because I was shocked that I literally created very little new content for 2 months and it made hardly any difference. I did see, even prior to that, I was reposting content already. And you can tell, because if you follow me on social, I got a mustache now and facial hair. I didn't have one. So you're like, hey, that's old stuff. And I'm giving you the insight on that. One thing I learned from Ron Butler that I'm going to take into this next year is you need to look consistently the same on all your posts, so that when people see you, they see your post, they know it's you. And I look different all the time. And so I'm working on having a consistent brand look across all that postings. And so you'll notice that in this next year that it'll become more consistent, because then when you're scrolling, somebody who is engaged with your previous content will be like, oh, I like this person. I don't like what they have to say. And so it's something that I'm also applying. So first lesson was forgetting the importance of taking care of your existing customers over focusing on new customers. Second is reposting works like a hot damn. And then the third lesson, which again, I think this is just a relearning, is mindset matters more than anything. Like honestly, in this business, this has been the most challenging thing I've ever built. I built other businesses in the past, and it's pushing me to the edge of my leadership skill. And I realized that all of the mindset tricks and frames and tools that I have learned over the years, and I've got a whole repository of them, I'm pulling those out on a daily basis sometimes to help myself, basically coach myself on my mindset. And, I've said to my son before we were chatting about this, and I said, even if let's say everything that you have in the mortgage business blows up and goes away tomorrow, and none of us can be mortgage brokers, and we're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? If you don't lose your mindset, you are still good. The key is to not lose that mindset, that positive, that you're going to problem solve, that you're going to find a solution. One of my coaches had told me before in the past is that if you think about, you've got this amazing car, this Lamborghini, but if it has no gas in it, you don't get any of the benefit of that Lamborghini. He basically said, your mindset is that gas in that tank. And if you're not putting time into mindset, if you're not focusing on what am I focusing on? I see there's, whatever political side you lean on, there's lots of garbage out there right now. And you can get so sucked into this and get frustrated by things you have zero control over. I find it comical, although I've been guilty of this. I'm not going to say that I'm immune to it, but I find it almost comical that we have people in our country get upset about politics in other countries that they can't even vote on. Like, you have no ability to, and yet we talk about it and we rant about it. And how about we focus on what is in your, circle of influence, circle of control? And that's a very small circle, and do that. And so that's what I remind myself of, is like, and that's part of protecting my mindset. Having a mindset routine, having tools that you can use when you run into challenges. I've been collecting for the last, I don't know how many years now, mindset, I call them frames. And so if you think about when you see a situation, and depending on how two people can look at this one situation and they'll see it completely differently. And the way they see it determines how they're going to actually interact, or if they're going to be positive or negative. Perfect story of this is the story of the two salesmen that get sent to a country with people with no shoes. So they're shoe salesmen. They go to this country, and in it, they get there and they realize nobody has shoes. So the first salesman's like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Send me home. This is a waste of time. Nobody wears shoes here. It's because their perspective was people don't have shoes, therefore they're not going to want shoes. The second salesman said, you better send more shoes because everybody here needs shoes. And so you can see the perspective that each person brought to the situation. The situation was exactly the same. And so I have about almost 30 of them now that I've collected over the years on these mindset frames. And I use them when I'm looking at a problem, or I'm looking at a situation, and I will cycle through these, almost like if you're at the eye doctor and they have that, they put that thing on your eyes and they flip through better or worse, A or B, and they flip through it. And so what I do is I will flip through those mindset frames until I find one that helps me see a situation in a light or in a perspective that goes, oh, okay, I see this differently now. The situation doesn't change. This shitty thing that's happening, the whatever doesn't change, but your energy changes, your ability to problem solve changes. And they say when you're in a positive state, you're 30% smarter. So if you want to get dumber, like, let your mindset go into a negative place, your problem solving is going to go down. And so for me, the mindset is absolutely critical and continue to be critical. And which is why I started this Mindset Monday, or Mortgage Mindset Daily. Starting in January, I'm going to be doing a series every day, 6 a.m. Pacific, where we're going through books that have had a massive impact on me. And the one we're going through right now is The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. I'm reading it for the 5th time. And if I'm honest, there's stuff I'm reading now going, how did I miss this? Like, I literally read this book 5 times, and there's parts of it that I thought, I don't remember this at all. And it makes me realize that the book hasn't changed, but I have. And the things that I need to learn change as I grow and as I evolve, and hopefully get, become better in my role and what I'm doing. And so it's something that if you're interested, you can always message me on that. But we've got over 100 people registered for that now. And I'm excited to lean into developing mindset, because if I've always said, I believe tactics matter. I believe strategy matters a lot when it comes to building a business. But if I gave you really, like, literally the opposite advice, I said, go do this thing, and I gave you bad strategy and bad tactics. But if you had a powerful mindset, and if I called you in 6 months, I'd say, how's it going? You'd say, amazing. And you know what? You'd be right, because you would end up finding a solution, because your mindset is more important than the strategy. It's more important than the tactics. And so for me, a thing that I want to lean into more in this next year is mindset, because it has made the biggest difference in my life personally. It is something that I believe at the core of me, like literally right down to my toes. I believe that if you get your mindset right, you can become unstoppable, and your potential. Like, I don't think most of us, myself included, I don't think I've hit my potential. I don't think we even come close to hitting our potential, or we're wasting time on things that we shouldn't be doing. And a lot of it has to do with mindset. So that's my 3 things, my 3 lessons. Focusing on new customers instead of existing customers. That's something I'm going to fix. Reposting content. If you create content, do that. And then the last, mindset matters a lot more than you realize. Last thing I want to talk about is what I'm going to be doing with the podcast next year. So I got 2 series. I'm going to still do I'm going to do interview shows and solo shows, because they serve a different purpose, but they also, they allow me to flex different creative muscles. And so but I'm going to be doing a series of shows. So a question I asked, I did this workshop recently, and it was on business planning. And the first question was, do you want to double your income or double your time off in the next year? And some people said both. Truth is, you're not going to do both in a single year. You could do both, but you're not going to do it in 12 months. And so I got Nate Atkin. Nate Atkin is a broker that is with us, but guys, absolutely, he's a pretty new broker, only been in business a couple of years, already did 40 million. His goal is to get to 100 million. So I'm going to be doing a podcast series with him. And it's similar to that $100 million journey. We're going to be working with Nate, looking under the hood of his business, figuring out what he needs next, helping him solve to grow to 100 million, which is awesome, double the income. And then I'm doing another podcast series at the same time. And these are going to come out once a month with Taylor Atkinson. And Taylor is a mortgage broker buddy of mine. And so he does about 30, 35 million a year. I'll get you the exact numbers when we do a show together for our first launch show. But he works about 25 hours a week. And his goal is to get down to 5 hours a week. So dramatically different goal. He wants to keep his volume about the same. So he wants the same volume, but a fraction of the hours. And so both of these things, by the way, are possible. It's just a matter of, you got to make different choices. And so if this is something you find interesting, I think you're going to like this series that we're doing in this next year. And then I'm also going to continue to do solo shows. Also, if you are interested in getting some of my thoughts on a weekly basis, my Peckford's Playbook email, something I put together every Sunday. Again, that was also put on pause because I just needed it. I worked remotely for a month. I was down in Mexico. It was amazing. Got engaged, and a lot of amazing life changes. But the email is coming out again on a weekly basis, and I just share insights, links, stuff like that. You can always hit me up if you're interested in that. And then if you want that workshop that we did, I can send you a recording. You can listen to it. So it's on business planning, and it's basically the anti-shiny object business planning workshop. And just hit me up either on social, hit me up with an email, Scott at Mortgage Brokering. I'm happy to send that to you. We'll do more of those in the next year, as I think that, this was a completely free thing, but again, you need to apply it to your business. So that's what we got coming. I'm excited for this next year. I am humbled by the lessons that I've learned in the last year and the growth that we've had, but also the growth that I'm going to have to continue to do in my business as a leader, and the stuff I have to learn. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a listener. I really appreciate you. This is not something I take lightly. We have been doing it a long time, and I want to get better. And so you're going to see the content is going to improve, the quality, the video quality, the everything. I'm going to work on all of it this year. There's going to be all these micro improvements that we want to make to it. Thanks for listening. As I always say, there's no problem in your business that someone else hasn't already solved. The problem is who's got the answer when you need it. Our goal with this podcast is to provide some of those answers. Thanks for listening, and I will see you on the next episode.